Topic 1.1, Square Numbers and Area Models. A rectangle is a quadrilateral with 4 right angles. A square also has 4 right angles. If you recall, a right angle is a 90-degree angle, so it forms a square corner like this. Okay? A rectangle with a base of 4 centimeters and a height of 1 centimeter, like this one, and a rectangle with a height of 4 centimeters and a base of 1 centimeter are actually the same. They are said to be congruent. Okay? Congruent. So we can say that these two rectangles, they are congruent. They have the same dimensions. This one is just tilted. So, is every square a rectangle? Well, based on our definition here, a rectangle is a quadrilateral. That's a 4-sided shape. You recall the prefix quad means 4. With 4 right angles. So that would mean that a square, which also has 4 right angles, is actually also a rectangle. Now, does it work the other way? Is every rectangle actually a square? Well, if all 4 sides are equal, in length that is, then sure, a rectangle could be a square. But if you have 4 sides that are not all equal, then it would not be a square. In order to calculate the area of a rectangle, we need to follow this procedure. Okay? Base times height. This is the formula for area, where A is equal to area. That's what it represents. So in this case, we have a base of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's call them centimeters. And we have a height of 2. Okay? And we'll call those centimeters as well. What we would do is we would take 4, which is the base, and 2, which is the height, and we'd multiply them together to get 8. Okay? And we would say 8 centimeters squared. All right? Or 8 square centimeters. In the case of a square, because in a square we have 4 identical sides, they're all going to be 3. Let's call them 3 centimeters. And we can represent the fact that they are all the same with a little notch through each side. The area of a square is calculated as the side length of that square, represented by the letter L, followed by this little 2 up here. And that little 2 represents that it's a square. Okay? What that means is that you multiply this number by itself. Okay? So what this would be the same as is this. So the area of the square is equal to the length times the length. All right, you can compare that to the rectangle formula here. We multiply the 2 dimensions of it, 4 times 2, or base times height, to get our 8 square centimeters. And in this case, really what we're doing is the same thing. We're looking at the base and we're looking at the height, okay? But because they are both the same, we really only need one number, okay? We just need the number 3. So what we can do is we can write this now as 3 squared, okay? Which is 3 times 3, which is 9. 9 centimeters squared. Okay? And I'm just going to circle my answers here. And what we can do to double check is just count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9. We've got it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. We've got it. So that's how you calculate the area for a rectangle. And also four square. When we multiply a number by itself, we square the number. And it can be any number. For example, if we wanted to square the number 1, we would multiply it by 1. 1 times 1 is equal to 1. How about the number 2? If we want to square the number 2, we would multiply it by itself. So we would say 2 times 2 equals 4. That would be the process of squaring the number 2. Any number works the same way. So the number 3, if we wanted to square it, we'd multiply it by 3. 3 times 3 is equal to 9. Okay? So another example is 4. The square of the number 4 is 4 times 4, which is 16. We write it out like this. 4 times 4 is equal to 4. And we put this little 2 symbol up here. This is an exponent. We put this 2 up here to represent that we're actually multiplying the 4 by itself. And it's really important that we remember we're multiplying it by itself here, okay? It doesn't mean to multiply by 2. That's actually a very common mistake. 4 squared is equal to 4 times 4 and not 4 times 2. Okay? So 4 squared is equal to 4 times 4, which is 16. And we call 16 a square number or a perfect square. And the reason we call it a square number or a perfect square is because we can actually represent the number 16 by a square. Okay, here's a square. It has 4 equal sides. And if we put the number 4 as the side length, because we know how to calculate the area of a square, we know that the area of a square is the side length of that square squared. Okay? That's how we'd say this. Or the side length times the side length. Okay? In this case, it would be 4 times 4, which is 16. So 16 is actually the area of this square. That's why we call it a square number, or a perfect square. And you will find that if you square any number, the answer you get will always be a square. It will always be a square number, or a perfect square. For example, the number 1, remember we did that. 1 times 1 equals 1. We can represent 1 as a square. It's 1 unit. It's a square with a side length of 1. Same with the number 2. We said 2 times 2 is equal to 4. Well, the number 4 can be represented as a square with a side length of 2. 3. 3 times 3 equals 9, right? So 9 can be represented as a square with a side length of 3. Okay? Now, there's a pattern here you may have caught on to already. And that pattern looks like this. If you break down a multiplication table like this, you will notice that this diagonal here actually contains all of the square numbers. And if you look, you can see 1 times 1 is equal to 1. So 1 is a square number. It can be represented by a square. 2 times 2 is equal to 4. 4, the number 4, can be represented by a square. 9 can as well, 3 times 3. 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25, 6 times 6 is 36, and so on. 7, 8, 9, and 10 squared. So this diagonal represents your square numbers.